2021 meeting of Gaston County Board of Education. I am Jeff Ramsey, member at large and chairman of the board. At this time, I would ask the other members of the board to introduce themselves.
Lee Dedman, Gastonia Township.
Steve Hall, Dallas Township.
Robbie Lovelace, Cherryville Township.
Dot Guthrie, Gastonia Township.
Dot Cherry, at-large member.
Brent Moore, Crowders Mountain Township.
Thank you. On behalf of the board, Mr. Collier?
Kevin Collier, Riverbend Township.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight. Thank you for your interest in Gaston County Schools. We look forward to a productive and informative meeting. Our first order of business is have our prayer and pledge of allegiance to the flag. I would like to ask our superintendent, Dr. Booker, to lead us in invocation and pledge.
Thank you. Please join me. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of our community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect the students, staff, faculty, and friends of Gaston County School. But through this all, Lord God, we ask your protection over all who serve our students, beginning with that early morning bus ride, the safe journey home, and all points in between. We just ask your protection and blessing on our schools. All of these things we seek in thy holy name. Amen. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next order of business to hear the good news. Excuse me, I went ahead. Our next order of business is to adopt the agenda. You have the proposed agenda in front of you. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a motion we adopt the agenda.
Okay, second by Ms. Cherry. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's you, Mr. Collier?
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Our next order of business is to hear good news happening in our schools. Dr. Booker, what's the good news you have to share today?
There is a lot of good news, and we look forward to the time when we can have these individuals join us here in the boardroom. But in place of that, we have for you a PowerPoint, and wanted to just start with our Gaston Early College and our student Nathan Vasquez. He has been selected as the president of the North Carolina Comprehensive Community College Student Government Association. You all know we have a history of our early college students being very active at the Gaston College, serving on their student government association. But this is at the next level. This is at the state level. And he has been selected as president for that student government association. So we're proud of Nathan. He serves on the Superintendent's Advisory Council. So he has taken on a number of active leadership roles. And we just wanted to recognize Nathan and all that he is doing during his academic career here in Gaston County Schools. A few weeks ago, that's true. A few weeks ago, W.C. Friday Middle School started their big birthday celebration in observance of the school's 50th anniversary. The students and staff had birthday cake, cupcakes, and there were a variety of fun activities during Spirit Week to bring attention to the 50th anniversary. There will be additional anniversary activities planned throughout the school year, but this evening we wanted to pause and say happy birthday to W.C. Friday, 50 strong years. One of the neat and unique programs to Gaston County Schools is Do the Right Thing. It's a partnership between the Gaston Gazette and sponsors along with the school system to recognize students monthly for doing the right thing. These students are nominated by members of their schools and recognized. And for October, we wanted to recognize Bill Glover of Tryon Elementary, Savannah Royston of Robinson Elementary. And the next slide, please. There you go. Samantha Munez Hernandez of Cramerton Middle School, and Caleb Smith of South Point High School. This program is set us there to recognize their students for doing the right thing, and this includes exhibiting great character traits such as responsibility, generosity, caring, respect, and cooperation. And it's really neat each month when this is published in the Gazette, and you get to see the full story recognizing each of them. So we hope to bring all our monthly winners together in the spring for a reception and a time for you all to meet all of them. Next is the Shrine Bowl recognition. We often talk about our athletes being there, but those athletes would not be successful without people like Kiana Abrams. She has been selected as the athletic training student aide for the Shrine Bowl of the Carolinas. She is the third student from Forest View to be selected for this honor. And while there may not be a Shrine Bowl game physically this year because of the pandemic, Kiana will be recognized on the Shrine Bowl website as well as various social media channels. And we wanted to take this moment and recognize her. So this is a great honor for her as well as the school system. So congratulations. Now this teacher has gone above and beyond during the pandemic. He has actually become a presenter for NASA Science, the International Observe the Moon Night program. So we are excited about the work that Milton has done, and his presentation focused on Inca cosmology and myths about the moon. Additionally, Mr. Valero has been instrumental in having North Gaston High School recognized as a member of the United Nations Global Schools Program. We want to thank him for all that he's done to support academics in this challenging time and the positive attention he is bringing to North Gaston and to Gaston County Schools. So congratulations, sir. Hopefully in this last good news item you saw on our website, recently Ashbrook High School student Eli Polson completed installation of a food pantry at Webb Street as part of his Eagle Scout project. With the pantry now in place, students in Susie Rutherford's class at Webb Street are in charge of operating and running the One Can Can Make a Difference food pantry. Our school social workers from across the district can place a food order through a Google form, which is used by the students as a guide to sort and package each order. Once that order is filled, the school social worker picks it up for distribution to a student in need. Not only did this project help Eli complete his Eagle Scout requirements, it's providing job skills training for students at Webb Street. The students are learning about how the grocery store works, online experience, and we believe these skills will help them as they move to get an actual job in the workplace one day. So thank you to Eli Polson, teacher Susie Rutherford, Webb Street principal Chris Mills, and all of the students involved in this program. Make sure to take time to go to our website where you can read more details about this. It's a really neat and touching story. So, Mr. Chairman, that completes our good news for tonight.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Booker, all that good news. The next item on our agenda allowed an opportunity for public expressions. This is time when the board will hear comments from our citizens of the matters of public concerns related to our school system. We do have several individuals signed up prior to the beginning of this meeting. Our board policy sets aside the first 30 minutes of our regular meeting for citizens to address the board. Do I hear a motion to extend that period from 30 minutes to 60 minutes?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I do move that we extend that time from 30 to 60 minutes.
Second. I have a motion on the floor. Ms. Guthrie, second by Mr. Debney. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Collier? Okay, it's unanimous. At the conclusion of the 60 minutes, we'll have a hard stop. Anyone not heard tonight can ask to sign up for our next regular meeting. We want to hear tonight from as many as we can. So if our speakers will keep in mind, as we hear from each other, we will limit your time to 3 minutes. Our clerk will be the timekeeper. And before we hear the public, let me outline the rules of procedures. For 1 hour, Citizens wishing to make comments and who have completed a request to speak form prior to beginning of this meeting will be recognized by the chair and then requested to step to the microphone and make their comments. Citizens will state their name and address for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Members of the board do not respond to public expressions during the public comment period. Public expressions does not allow for comments on confidential or personal matters. Speakers who wish to give materials to the board will hand it to our clerk. The chair shall rule at all points of order during public expression. Our first speaker will be Joshua Taylor. Joshua Taylor, is he here? Okay. Pam Miller.
Good evening. Thank you for listening to my comments tonight. I would like to express my thanks to Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, Dr. Booker, and school board members. My name is Pam Miller. I live on Cramerton Village Drive in Cramerton, and tonight I come to speak on behalf of my members and colleagues. Educators want to have the schools our students deserve. We want school to be engaging, inspiring, and safe. We want students to become lifelong learners who are actively engaged in their communities. In order for this to occur, educators need the resources and time to plan dynamic and effective lessons. Gaston County educators, parents, and community supporters need to band together and contact our state legislators. We need to join together to firmly ask for a state budget that increases per pupil spending, ensures all students receive a sound basic education, and pays all educators from the office to the classroom to the bus drivers a living wage. If we want high-quality educators, we need the funding to retain them in Gaston County. On a much brighter note, I want to acknowledge and thank the administrators of Gaston County Schools for their care, commitment, leadership, and diligence. They have worked hard in these difficult times, and they continue to work hard to provide a safe place for staff and students. We encourage everyone to show their appreciation and their respect for the wonderful administrators in our school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Carrie Hester.
Hi, my name is Carrie Hester, and you have my address on the form I submitted. First off, I just want to thank Justin Davis, Steve Hall, and Brent Moore. I want to thank you for continuing to stand up for freedom and understanding that parents know what's best for our kids, not the government. I don't come to you this evening in a fancy doctor's coat. I wasn't recruited to speak. I'm just a mom who has kids who I love with all my heart, and I see this mask mandate firsthand every single day of my life. As the mother of my children, I know their individual needs and struggles and what's best for their health. The government does not, and I don't think the school board does. These doctors that are asked to come and speak at the meetings don't know what's best for my individual child. By forcing masks on our kids, you're saying to them that their mental health doesn't matter. And I know this because I have a daughter who struggled with it last year. Masks may not bother all kids, which is great, and I think that's awesome for those kids. But what about the kids like my daughter? Does her mental health not matter? Last year, we realized that she had panic attacks halfway through the school year. She started the school year out positive because she was ready to be with her friends and see other kids, but halfway through the year, she was having panic attacks, not wanting to go to school. She barely made it out of the 3rd grade last year because her grades plummeted. She's never in her life struggled with bad grades. So does her mental health not matter? If it were truly about our kids' health, I feel like we could send some information home with, I'm sure we get COVID funds to the schools. I feel like we could send information home with ways to build their immune systems. You know, there's supplements they can take. My kids are on supplements. They have a healthy diet because we're fighting COVID at the root because it's a virus. It's not going to go anywhere. The flu, it's not going to go anywhere, except last year, I guess it did. Stomach viruses, strep, those are things that aren't going to go anywhere. So instead of masking our kids forever, why don't we take care of it at the root of the issue and build their immune systems? So what's the end goal here? COVID is a virus. Like I said, it's not going to disappear. Are we going to mask our kids forever? Are we going to sanitize forever and keep them all separated from human contact? I feel like that's not a good case. We have to have an end goal. The bottom line is it's the government's job to protect our freedoms, not our health. I don't co-parent with the government. My husband and I love our kids more than anything. We love our kids more than anybody loves our kids, so I promise you we're going to make the best decisions for them and their health. I stood at this meeting in July. I heard all of you say, how could we make a decision of what's best for your child? We're in no place to make that decision of what's best for your children. So I'm not sure with 6 of you what automatically changed, that all of a sudden because some doctors in white coats came, you know what's best for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Brunder.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Bruner. You have my address there on file. U.S. federal government is holding holding ownership interest in the patents on this vaccine, number one. Originally, the goal was to recoup their cost and make a, quote, tiny bit of profit, but now that's farthest from the truth. Mind you, the price used to be 80 cents per dose. As of February of 20, it was $19.50, and of March of 2021, it was $28.39 at 60 million doses at that time. However, the CEO of Pfizer sees future prices as high as $175 per dose. That's a lot of money to be made by the U.S. federal government, which contributes funds to the Gaston County school system. March of 2020, Gaston County Schools received $10 million from the federal government in the CARES Act, again in December of 20, and again in March of 2021. Once again, you received more federal funds. All of these amounts on top of your normal federal funds you receive annually. In fact, Gaston County Schools has a little over 31,000 students and was allotted $108.5 million by the federal and state governments, according to the county's website and the state of North Carolina's website. In fact, North Carolina schools have received $5.1 billion in federal aid since the pandemic began. In 2017, the federal government gave $36 million plus to Gaston County Schools. Gaston County Schools has made a lot of money off of this pandemic, and if you go against the state and you risk losing that money. Gaston County also receives funding from the USDA at $10 million per public school unit, which is also a branch of the federal government in the nutrition program. You would also risk losing those funds and backlash from the state. According to House Bill 196, Gaston County Schools was allotted a little over $8 million of the over $2 billion in federal aid. With that being said, I implore you, let us be the parents, not the school board. The studies that were done on the mask, not one I can find anywhere to where one of these children at all in any study wore these masks for over 5 minutes. Our kids are wearing those masks 7+ hours a day, 5 days a week. If none of you can come out and say for sure, without a doubt, which your professionals can't because there's been absolutely no study whatsoever done, then I think you as a school board owe us to sign a, sorry, I got nervous. An affidavit of guarantee that nothing longitudinal is going to happen to our children.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Christie Franks. Michael Crisp. Sally Drennan. Tyler Lee. Lena Snead.
Hi, it's Lath Snead at 4353 Hickory Hollow Road. I'm in favor of the mask mandate, and I can see that we've done significantly better than schools that have gone mask optional. Our school has had, that school that my daughter is in, she's a senior. This is my last child's last year in the Gaston County Public School System. I feel like we owe it to all our kids to help keep them safe, and just understand that overall, this masking, it means that you're fighting. It doesn't mean that you're wearing it as a symbol. It's just for public health and human safety, and I really believe in that. I know so many people do, and I really appreciate all the teacher efforts that they have made, and being in the hallways and telling the kids, oh, cover your nose, we'll put your mask, get your mask up, get your mask up. But overall, to understand that this movement, the anti-vax, anti-mask movement, really overall, the end game and the long view is to divert money, to degrade the school system and our public health system so much that we seek out private options. We say, oh no, they're protesting over there, I don't want that. We're gonna go private. Then they get more money or vouchers to go to charter schools, or you can homeschool. Well, 70% of those are Christian-based, and that's fine. But keep things in perspective. If we keep on degrading public schools and our public health systems and mail services, we don't have those systems anymore. There's a bigger, long view in place than just the little back and forth of masking, not masking. This is a huge effort that is being made in the long view to seek out privatization. That is the overall end goal, and I really appreciate everything that has been done. At my child's school, I know the cases have gone up there a little bit, and I would hate to see us go backwards and have more cases. We just had a lot of cases where my husband works. He's in a big textile plant, and he really can appreciate the students being safe and the community trying to be safe and workers not calling in sick. He just had a worker die. It's very scary, and more people have signed up for the vaccine there at his work. And I just really appreciate all the hard work that our teachers are doing in the masking efforts, and I really support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Must be somebody coming in. Yeah. Okay. This must be already called.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie, and my last name and address is on the speaker request form. There are actually activists in the room that enjoy stalking the homes of those of us that don't agree with them. So I refuse to give that on the record, but you have that for your own use. I am here to speak on behalf of many parents who are afraid to actually come and speak at these board meetings and voice their opinion for fear of retaliation and bullying by the school administration and teachers against their children while they're on school property. Yes, this is actually happening in Gaston County. There are actually parents that have common sense that goes against the grain of what you guys feel is best for our children, and they are being bullied and terrorized on school campuses. Since March of 2020, we have a medical issue, but we actually have a bigger legal crisis. The reality is that we are living under tyranny that we never thought was possible in America. Let me give you a dose of reality. We've lost almost all of our constitutional rights, and we barely hold on to the Second Amendment. Freedom of religion, gone. Churches were forced to close, and many still remain closed today. It's shameful. Free speech, gone. The silencing of the majority and silencing of critical thinkers. The First Amendment allows us to say things that others don't want to hear. Apparently, the current Attorney General views us parents with valid concerns regarding masking of their children and CRT instruction in schools. We're now labeled as domestic terrorists. Free press, gone, corrupted, and now a monopoly. The major news networks created a trusted news initiative where they all agreed not to report on anything that disagreed with the vaccine and mask narrative. So if you're watching mainstream media, you're all getting propaganda. The right to peacefully assemble and the right to petition the government, gone. 6 feet, stay masked, no more than 10 people in a room. It's funny, I walked into this same building in this same room during the July and August board meeting, but now I have to stand outside. I can't even come in the building because I won't put a piece of cloth over my face. So I can't peacefully attend any meetings or assemble where thought and conversation is going on. For the parents that are watching tonight, I hope you know that there are as many people outside of this room as there are inside this room fighting for your rights to be able to make choices for your children. Medical tyranny is the mechanism that's being used to control each and every one of us. I'm not focusing on the medical, I'm focusing on the tyranny. And every single person on this school board that continues to vote to mask our children is a participant in overreach of government and tyranny. I hope that you can live with yourselves each night when you go home at night.
Thank you. Jennifer Morales.
My name is Jennifer Morales, and I'm a resident of Mount Holly. My address is on the form. I don't even think arguing about masks is going to get better. I think no matter what studies people use, you will still believe that masks work. I'm more concerned about the propaganda that is currently being placed on my children. Even you, sir, at Gaston County at the ribbon cutting, had a mask on. Yet when you sat down, you gratefully took it off. Wearing masks is not normal. Wearing masks while driving in your car alone is not normal. Children wearing masks in school is not normal. The only normal thing that I see going on here is how easy the government is brainwashing people. You really should do more research on your doctors. Anyone who publicly thinks that not taking a vaccine should be a death sentence or be denied treatment should lose their license. I hope they feel the same way about pedophiles, murderers, addicts, alcoholics, obesity, and anyone else who has medical issues because of their personal choices. The patent for the social engineering credit scores is already here, and your score will be determined by your compliance and your behavior. Reality has become an episode of Black Mirror. If you look at the greatest vaccinated states of Hawaii or Vermont, they will also have the greatest outbreaks of COVID. However, your health department person will say it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Let's be real. The vaccinated are the super spreaders. Israel surpassed over 1 million cases and have been 85% vaccinated. Colin Powell died this morning from after being vaccinated. Let's talk about CDC definitions of vaccinated. If you've had 1 or 2 doses and it's been 14 days, you are considered unvaccinated. So when they try to mandate a booster, if you don't take it, you are considered unvaccinated. So what is it going to take? How many boosters will you take? Or will you be like the company in Louisiana that says if your spouse isn't vaccinated, you owe $200 a month? An ultimatum is not a choice. When the Nazis took over, they took out the good doctors first and left the ones that experimented on the Jews. After all, they didn't load people into the gas chambers right away. The fact sheet for the Pfizer biotech even states that myocarditis and pericarditis have been reported and that additional adverse reactions may be apparent with more use. However, can we please stop acting like COVID is a death sentence? In fact, I have over a 97% chance of surviving, vaccinated or not, but I have a 100% chance of not getting an adverse reaction by not being vaccinated. Thousands of stories have come forward with vaccine adverse reactions. Places like nomoresilence.world or avoiceforvictims.org, but they're being silenced by big tech. Hospital protocols are what killing people. If they're giving remdesivir to people which have been causing to have fluid in the lungs and liver failure, you're part of the problem. If you're not pushing prophylactics, but the jab, you should lose your license. I think if this is about a virus, after 2 years, you're either willingly blind or plain ignorant. Our common agenda from the UN already speaks about New World Order. So I can provide that copy to you. Per the North Carolina state constitution, it says, "We, the people of this state, have the inherent sole and exclusive right of regulating an internal government of police thereof, whenever it may be necessary to their safety and happiness. Either stand up with us or move out of the way, because it looks like us parents need to start suing the school board. By your complacent, you were not just proving what side of German army you were part of.
All right, thank you. Cameron Abercrombie. Cameron Abercrombie. Kelly Shelton. Kelly Shelton. Candace Robertson. Alicia Summy. Morgan. Yeah, I can't. No, sir, okay. And it's got Amy H. They don't have a last name on it. Jessica Higgins. Morgan. Oh, okay, that's.
My name is Amy. You have my information on the sheet. I have children in Gaston County schools, and I live in Gaston County, and I have emailed 6 of you numerous times over the past weeks following the last meeting with this email. This is the last one I believe I sent. What coward you are, I've repeatedly asked and have yet to get an actual response, justifying your personal vote. I want your reason for continuing to force a medical device that I do not consent to on my child. You're not doctors. You've not given me information that allows me to choose the best option for my child. Yet you continue to force this device on my child that does not do any good. Not one of you can answer why. So justify your vote. Or make public the amount of money that was received for forcing this illegally on my children. This was sent with an attached picture, side of a box of masks, that clearly states the product will not provide any protection against COVID-19, other viruses, or contaminants. I received 3 responses. Let me say that again. 3. One that said, please see my comments at the last 2 meetings. One that stated the board currently supports wearing masks as part of the Strong Schools Toolkit. And one that said she believed they were following the guidance from the CDC. 3 of you did not even bother to respond. This letter was sent multiple times. So I turn the question to the others that are in this room and to those that listen online. How much COVID money was taken by Gaston County Schools from the federal government? How much of the Strong Schools Toolkit is dictated by this federal money? Did this money make the board change from a unanimous vote for optional masks to forced masks? How long before that federal money dictates that our children be vaccinated against our will? So my question now is, at what price? What amount of money did it take for my right as a parent to choose for my child to be sold out?
Thank you.
Sir, did you call Jessica Higgins?
Yes, I left it right here. Yeah. Kathy Gibbs is next.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Higgins, and good evening to the members of the Gaston County School Board. First, I would like to thank board members, Mr. Moore, Mr. Hall, and Mr. Davis, for standing in solidarity with the voters that they represent and voting no to the mask mandate motion at the last few school board meetings. Thank you for trusting the parents to make the best decision for their children and themselves. I'd like to take a minute to highlight the events of the past few months, and let's just say, pull the curtain back on the real agenda of the school board. On July 27th, this board held a special meeting to discuss and weigh in on the decision of mask mandates. The board voted 9-0 in favor of optional mask. There was a large turnout in favor of optional masks for our students at that meeting. Many parents were anxiously awaiting to see what decision this board would make related to mask mandates as they navigated the best solutions and school choices for their students. Beginning the next day, I suspect there was a surge in school registrations under the guise of optional masks for the school year. Fast forward to August 16th meeting, which was just a few days prior to the start of school. I also attended this meeting, and one of the speakers made the comment that it was interesting that the real agenda of the meeting was only made available to the mask mandate crowd. The theatrics in the room on that night was nauseating. Doctors from Caramont, all garbed in double mask. The county medical expert put up a chart after chart with uncorroborated data. To put it mildly, the drama was on full display. 6 members of the board all caved to the mask mandate crowd and reversed their stance from July's meeting. In essence, saying to the parents of the school children in Gaston County, we can't trust you to know what's best for your child. In my opinion, this was a classic bait and switch trick. This board created an illusion of choice in July to encourage those parents that were holding out to register students, and then in August, when it was too late for parents to pull out, you pulled the rug out from under them so as to get your funding from the state for each of those students. Shame on you for being dishonest with the voters and the parents that you serve. After review of the NC General Statute 115C as it pertains to the state and local education boards, I found nothing in the statute that allows any school board in NC to prescribe, or in this case force, a medical device on any student. A mask is a medical device, and on the box it clearly states that. These students do not belong to you, the school, or the government, and the parents of these students do not desire to be in a co-parenting relationship with you. In no time in history have the people forcing others into compliance ever been the good guys. If you ever wondered whether you would have complied during 1930s Nazi Germany, now you know. If you are trying to force compliance in the name of safety and deny basic freedom of choice, deny basic freedom of bodily integrity, it doesn't matter if there is an R or a D beside your name, you are a fascist. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Gibbs. Morgan, the next one is Jordan James.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kathy Gibbs. You have my address on my form. I am from Belmont. I am the mother of 5 children. I've been a resident of Gaston County since 1993. All 5 of my children have attended Gaston County schools, and I've been perfectly happy here until last year, 2020, when I had a senior stripped of all of his senior privileges because of your protocols, your decisions. So I knew I needed to be here to make a voice for him. July 26th, this past year, you made a decision to make masks optional, which should be your only legal option to give us. But that was too easy for you guys that day. I think because on August 16th, you knew you were going to reverse that decision right before school started. And that day in this meeting, you had your white coats and your pro-maskers here that day to promote fear and intimidation. It's disgusting. Then on September 20th, you continued that mask mandate. Continued it again. And here we are, October 18th, ready to see what your next decision is going to be. And you've continued to have your white coats and your pro-maskers here. And you listen to Steve Eaton and his skewed numbers. But a lot of information's come out since July 26th. We all know that Fauci's a fool. We know the CDC has lied. We know the FDA has lied. We have hospitals that have been caught lying, that they're skewing their numbers to make COVID look like it's worse than it is. We've had nurses and doctors coming forward. Truthfully, I guess they're not scared or they're tired of getting paid. I'd like to see the bank accounts of these people that's been here speaking. I'd like to see your bank accounts too. I'm here today to ask that you make masks optional. Stop giving in to the fear. Stop giving in to the intimidation. Do what's good. Do what's right. Stop giving in to the evil that you're all sitting there doing when you vote against optional mask. Your stupid toolkit, I read that today from A to Z. It's laughable, absolutely laughable. We all know that this is ridiculous. It's time that you step up. You guys have the voice. You have the right. You need to do it. You need to do something that's right. Because you're just in this room promoting evil to everybody. Let's go, Brandon, and go Big Red.
Thank you. Jordan James, no, Corey Brown. Faye Adams Pagan. Kenny Phillips. Crystal Hall. Sierra Hall. Shania Sawinski. Where's the echo in here? Rick Gass.
Good evening. My name is Rick Gass. You have my address and stuff there.
Thank you, yes.
I spent well over my adult life, over half of it, defending this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'm a retired Marine Corps Master Gunnery Sergeant. I did not shed blood, sweat, and tears in 3 different wars and many conflicts to let you, this school board, step on my grandbaby's rights. They had God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You have no control over that. I do. So I'm done with this. My grandbabies, starting next Monday, will no longer be under your tyranny with mask mandates. They will go to school without one. And I will tell you up front, do not impede on their rights. Because trust me, a lawsuit will be the least of your problems. Now, if this thing is so bad, then why are they firing doctors and nurses by the tens of thousands? Think about that for a second. If it's so bad, then why aren't the homeless, the most vulnerable, dying in the streets? More kids, 15 times more kids die a year in car accidents. You gonna stop parents from bringing them to school? Use your head. We following the money that you're getting, and it's all gonna come out in the end. But I'm done. Like I said, starting next Monday, my grandbabies will not be wearing a mask in school. Do not violate their rights.
Thank you. Dr. Crystal Bow.
I got a place they can put it.
Quiet.
Yeah, really? I'm told there is no one else outside on the list.
Okay. Okay. Monica Powell Cubitt.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Monica Powell Cupid, and I am a pediatrician. I'm pediatrics trained. First, I would like to thank you for mandating masks in schools. I am not here for the sensationalism. I am here for my children and the children of the county. I would like for the mask mandate to stay in place because the science is what you are following when you do that. All of these claims of money, I don't have anything to do with that. And I don't think you do either, and that's not what's important here right now. What is important is that we keep our children safe and keep them in school learning. When children wear masks in school, they can stay in school if someone happens to be positive for COVID. If they don't wear masks, they are going to be quarantined at home, and then they will for 14 days. And imagine if we have to keep doing that once a month, 14 days at a time. Personally, I have 4 children. I only have one that is in the Gaston County schools at this point, and I can't homeschool her. So I would appreciate her being able to stay in school, and I appreciate all that you are doing to ensure that our children stay safe. I will say a couple of things now. Number one, the COVID numbers are going down, and that is because we are doing 2 things. We are vaccinating and we are masking. We should continue to do that. Colin Powell died today, no relation to me, but he died today. And yes, he was fully vaccinated. The reason why he died that people seem to not want to mention is because he had multiple myeloma. So he was immunosuppressed. The vaccine didn't work well for him. But what we as human beings need to do is help keep people like Colin Powell safe. Wear masks around people who, through no fault of their own, are unable to mount a response to a vaccine that they would love to get and be protected from COVID with. So what we need to do is, if we can, wear masks around them. That would decrease the possibility of them getting infected. I appreciate all that you have done, and I would hope that you would continue to keep the well-being of the children and the teachers and faculty and staff of the Gaston County schools in mind, and keep the mask mandate for as long as possible. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Dr. Crystal Bowie? She's not available. Okay, that's what. Chase Fuller?
Good evening. My name is Chase Fuller. I live in Gastonia. My address is on the form. I'm a PA at South Point Family Practice in Belmont and the mother of 2 children at Best Elementary School. I'm here to ask that you continue to make masks mandatory for all students and staff. Our COVID numbers are decreasing, which is great news, but we are still higher than the rest of North Carolina and the country on average. Transmission in our county is still classified as high. Now is not yet the time to relax the mask requirements. Masks are effective. Masks limit quarantine. I've heard concern that there's a warning on the box of surgical masks stating that it will not protect the wearer against COVID. And yes, that is an accurate statement, but it doesn't tell the whole story. There are multiple types of masks which offer different levels of protection and are appropriate for different situations. The best level of protection is with a mask that's been fit tested, such as an N95. These don't fit everyone properly. I failed my fit test with using an N95, so to get the proper level of protection, I have to use this 9205. Fit testing children is neither appropriate nor available, so we turn to other types of masks to help. After a fitted mask, the next best level of protection is a double mask, such as a cloth over a surgical mask. This is followed by a surgical mask alone, and finally a 2-layer cloth mask made of flexible, tightly woven fabric. That is what most students are wearing, and it offers the least amount of protection to the wearer, but that doesn't mean they're ineffective. Masks are most effective as source control, meaning controlling the spread of germs from the individual who is sick. When an infected person wears a mask, a large percentage of the exhaled infectious particles are trapped. When fewer viral particles are floating around the room, the masks others wear may block those particles that have escaped, even when it's just a cloth mask. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends universal masking in schools because a significant portion of the student population is not eligible for vaccination. The FDA will meet next week and vote on the Pfizer vaccine for children ages 5 to 11. If the vote passes, it will move on to the CDC, and if given approval, vaccines could start early next month. The Strong Schools North Carolina Public Health Toolkit states children who have been fully vaccinated and do not show symptoms don't have to quarantine. Children who aren't fully vaccinated don't have to quarantine if masks are being worn appropriately and consistently by both the person with COVID and the exposed person. Masks limit quarantine. Shorter quarantine options have been available since December 2020 and were briefly discussed at the last meeting. Schools should consider adopting these shorter quarantines. However, if the shorter quarantine is chosen, the exposed individual, quote, has to strictly adhere to all non-pharmaceutical interventions, wear a mask, practice social distancing through 14 days. If masks are optional, will the teachers be required to keep track of the days a student must wait before removing the mask? Let's not add more tasks for the teachers. Let's give our kids the best chance we can to stay in school. Keep masks mandatory.
Thank you. Ryan Sims? Okay, thank you. Lena Ware?
Hello, my name is Lena Ware, and my address is on the form. There are a lot of adults today talking for children in schools, but I am actually in a high school. I know it is impossible for me to represent all youth my age, but as for me, I don't mind wearing a mask. If I can possibly save just one person's life, or save one person from getting permanent lung damage or another long-term effect of COVID-19, I will happily wear a mask every day. I've gone to work and worked for 8-9 hours with a mask on, and it hasn't bothered me. And I know the majority of the people I go to school with think the same way. On another note, I feel that sometimes when growing up around South Point, we may think of the Red Raider mascot as normal, because that's what we're used to. My stepsister, who didn't grow up in this county, told me that when she first drove past South Point High School, she noticed the large caricature of the mascot and immediately thought, is that okay? Because she felt a sense that the mascot was wrong. When people outside of Gaston County see South Point's mascot and feel that there's something wrong, then that should be a sign to us and to everyone that it needs to change. As I've already said, South Point's Red Raider mascot is deeply insensitive and racist against Native people of the United States. You surely know this already from all the people who have come up here and talked about it. I have listened to the opposing side, most of whom who had mostly said there was too much history for South Point's mascot. Let me ask this. What about the 20,000 years of Indigenous history in this country? Does South Point's offensive caricature of Indigenous people give you the right to erase 20,000 years of history? Thank you for your time and hopefully for your consideration.
Thank you. Ava Clarkson?
Hi, my name is Ava Clarkson. My address is on the form. I'm here to urge you to change the Red Raider mascot. You guys know why. You can probably guess the words that are about to come out of my mouth. And you might just want to tune us out today, and the next month, and the month after that. But like Lena said last month, you aren't going to stop the retiring of the Red Raider by ignoring us. You're simply slowing it down. We won't stop fighting, and we won't stop coming to these meetings. The pain this mascot causes Native people today won't be any different from the pain it causes the next generation. I promise you this won't stay under the radar. What does it say about the school board that we have been coming to these meetings for well over a year and retiring the Red Raider still hasn't been added to the voting list? All of you here have political power. With that power, you should do the right thing, not the easy thing. It may be easier for the time being to sweep Native feelings under the rug, but I promise you this is not the right thing for your community. Native people are suffering. Your students are being misguided, and racism is being normalized in one of your schools. This should be terrible, terrifying news to you, but it's never too late to change. To do the right thing. The ground that pro-Red Raider arguments stand on is starting to fall apart. There is no real reason to keep this mascot. It's already been confirmed by more than enough Native people and organizations that this mascot does not honor Native people or culture. Do pro-Red Raider people actually care about honoring Native people? If they did, they would listen. They would value their voice and opinion more than anything. They would open up their hearts and show some empathy when Native people say this mascot is hurting them. If you want to honor Native culture, change the mascot. More than enough Native people have described the pain that this mascot has caused. An estimated 75% of people who strongly identify with the Native American term find Native mascots offensive. Over 1,500 Native organizations have spoken out against this Native mascot for being offensive. Spoken out against Native mascots for being offensive. There's more than enough reasons to change this mascot. 1 in every 240 Native Americans have died of COVID versus the 1 in every 500 COVID death rate average. This virus is targeting Native people at a horrifying rate. American colonizers killed 90% of the Native American population. Native Americans are suffering. This is far from okay, and we can't justify America's disgusting past with it happened a long time ago. When Native Americans are still affected by colonization to this day. This mascot is contributing to the awful treatment of Native Americans. Don't believe me? Studies show that Native American mascots increase suicidal ideation among Native students. So for the next month, add retiring the Red Raider to the voting list. Next month is Native American Heritage Month. So please, in honor of that, let this matter come to a vote for the next board meeting.
Thank you. Richard Boyce.
You have my name and address on the record. Mr. Ramsey, Superintendent, and members of the Board of Education. I'm proud to follow the past two speakers. This is a tough night, y'all. I don't have to tell y'all that. Emotions are high. Some of our speakers have come with reasonable requests in terms, some otherwise. Passions are running deep. I commend you for educating yourselves on one topic, the science of masks in our school, and I urge you to keep our students as safe and continue the current trends. I'm more disappointed, though, in your refusal to educate yourselves on another topic, and that's the topic of the logo at South Point High School. Over 50 years ago, the town of Belmont changed its logo. It can be done, from the Cardinals to the Red Raiders. I don't know the history of that change. I assume there was probably controversy then. When we made that change, though, we did not do our homework. We adopted a bright red face. We allowed the tomahawk chop. When my girls were at South Point, we had some student ride out onto the field, bare-chested on horseback. These are not the traditions or the practices of the indigenous tribes of our area and our state, like the Cherokee, like the Catawba, like the Lumbee. You are a Board of Education. You should be modeling education and learning, particularly on difficult topics, in addition to mask. For over a year and a half, you've heard very articulate people speaking to you. Students, members of indigenous tribes, and fellow citizens. And you have done nothing, absolutely nothing. I've been working behind the scenes, as some of you know, and now I'm getting nowhere, and that's the reason I'm here in person tonight. As I said, every month, speakers, you stare at your desk and submit to your no comment. A couple of times, people have written to the chair and the superintendent requesting to be put on the agenda. No response to those requests. There have been a couple of protests, civil, orderly protests at South Point High School on this topic, and now we're being informed that South Point High School will not allow protesters on school property. We can do better than this, y'all. Let's educate ourselves. Let's do our homework. Let's take some leadership on this topic as well as others. Thank you.
Thank you. Haley Brazil. Haley Brazil. She's not there. Okay, thank you. Emily Rollins.
Hi, my name is Emily Rollins and my address is on the sheet. If you recall, as most of my peers would, and I myself do, anti-bullying campaigns are prevalent throughout elementary to high school. They're all over the doors, throughout the halls, and we watch videos yearly about anti-bullying. The reason for these campaigns are to promote a safe learning environment for students. After all, isn't that what school is all about? Yet at South Point, the school mascot itself is creating an unsafe environment for students, which is why I and other my peers here today are here speaking about it. To quote the American Psychological Association, Native American mascots have a negative impact on not only Native students, but all students by undermining the educational experiences of members of all communities, especially those who have had little to no contact with Indigenous peoples. And these mascots establish an unwelcoming and oftentimes hostile learning environment for Native American students that affirms negative images and stereotypes that are promoted in mainstream society. Is this the kind of school you want South Point to be? A school that upholds a racist and offensive mascot, one that creates a hostile learning environment for all students? You won't listen to fact because we've been up here giving you facts and statistics month after month. You won't listen to anecdotal evidence because we've had testimonies from various South Point and Gaston County students, alumni, professors, and even the Lumbee Tribal Committee. So who will you listen to? How many students and adults have to speak? What will it take to change this mascot? I urge you to really think about all the information I and other speakers today have given you, from the psychological impacts of Native American mascots on all students to the hostile environment it creates, to how you can really listen to your community. Because honestly, let's cut the script. I know we're all busy. Today I had to drive 50 minutes in that Charlotte traffic we all know and love from work just to be here today. I'm sure, and as I can see today, you're very busy, and the school board has a lot to do on a daily basis. But I really don't think it's asking too much to ask the school board to get together and really consider changing this mascot, to add it to the agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dr. Brian Buzzio, excuse me.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Brian Buzzio. I live on Raglan Drive in Gastonia. And I was here back at the August meeting when you all made that very courageous decision the first time to mandate masks. And one of the reasons I'm here today is to thank you for that and help everybody understand what that's actually done for the community. I was not able to come to the meeting last month, but I did send some emails out and just want you to know how much myself and many of us in the mental community appreciate what you all did. It's a very hard thing, and there's evidence tonight, a lot of opposition to a decision like that. But the thing that I was most pleased with and proud of was the fact that you all listened. You listened to both sides, you listened to Mr. Eaton's data, and you made a very careful decision based on the data for the health and well-being of our children, with the common goal of both sides, which is to keep them in school and keep them safe. And I just think that's a real win. Moving on, the numbers, as some people have mentioned tonight, at the hospital and otherwise, are going in the right direction. We've got a good trend going here. And I even spoke with Mr. Chris Peak, the CEO of the hospital, today about that. And he agrees with my thought on that as well, which is that is in no small part to the decision that you all made. By wearing masks in the schools, it helps decrease the transmission. And there's really not any data that suggests that's not accurate. That just helps tremendously with decreasing infection rates. And we're doing that. Gaston County, though, as a couple have pointed out, is still much higher than the state average and much higher than the national average. So we still have some work to do. Now, I guess I should point out, after hearing some of the comments tonight, I'm not a paid speaker. Nobody recruited me to be here, and I think that goes for my other colleagues. And I think one of the reasons, I wore this white coat tonight, and I did in the August meeting, is because I think people in Gaston County need to know that their doctors care about them, care about their children, and want to help everyone understand the medical situation that's going on here in Gaston County and what we can do to help that. And you guys already did that. I would like to encourage you all to mandate masks for yet another month. Our goal is to one day come up here and say we don't need to do that anymore, but we're not there yet. Again, the numbers are going in the right direction. But I want to leave you with a final thought. We're going in the right direction, but we are not there yet. You don't go to your doctor and hope that he half-treats your infection. And I'm going to implore you not to stop our preventative measures when we're only about halfway there. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Amanda Placey West.
Hi there. My name is Amanda Placey West. I gave my credentials at the last meeting, but here they are again. I've been an ICU and critical care transport nurse for the last 18 years. I have been on the front lines of this pandemic, and it's still not over, as all these people are saying. And after hearing all these speakers tonight, I really would like to know where all these people who think healthcare workers are liars are going to get treatment. Are you going to trust us when you get sick and come to the hospital to treat you? Because you don't trust us beforehand. I'm truly at a loss as to why following the advice of medical experts is even a debate at this point. The science is clear. They have told us the best ways to protect our community, yet many still don't want to listen. I work in a hospital environment. If you're hospitalized and you decide not to follow the doctor's orders and you leave the hospital against medical advice, there are penalties for that. Your insurance company may choose not to pay part of your bill because you went against expert advice. Why is this any different? Public schools are funded by our tax dollars, and it's completely unreasonable to ask parents to send their kids to school against medical advice. Doctors are telling us to wear masks to protect ourselves and others. That's what we should continue to do. We should not follow advice from conspiracy theorists or internet doctors. Let's make the comparison of not following medical advice and apply that to law enforcement. When the need arose to develop active shooter drills, did we ask parents the best way to conduct those drills, or did we rely on the expert advice of law enforcement? I believe we relied on experts to help us keep our children safe, and that's what we should continue to do. I spoke last time about the importance of personal choices and how they should be protected, except when those choices endanger your community. I'm a strong believer in all of our individual rights as citizens of the United States. I know some of you on this board may have other political aspirations and are making decisions based on upcoming elections. One of you is running for Superior Court judge. When sitting on that bench, you're going to be asked to listen to expert witnesses and then make decisions that affect directly the fate of our citizens. If you can't listen to experts while you're on the school board, then I don't know how you expect people to trust you when evaluating that information from the bench. We all need to be listening to medical experts and blocking out the noise from everyone else, including your constituents, who have no expertise on these matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Gallagher. Okay, and I might tell her.
I'm cramming a lot in, and this has nothing to do with all those other subjects. Just want to say, hey, y'all. I come before you to let you know there are several items that I'm working on that will involve your notice and permission. A friend of mine who worked with Gaston County Schools for several years, his name is Sharon Philman. Unfortunately, he died of brain cancer 2 years ago. But before his death, he and I went on a mission trip to West Virginia. And our task was to get steel-tip shoes. So I was running around trying to get some steel-tip shoes, and he went to the maintenance department here and got a bunch of them. And so we went to West Virginia and we distributed them. And I just want to say thank you to your maintenance department, Chip Irby, Miss Marie Dion, and Miss April Talent. They put the word out to the men and women to get the shoes, these used shoes, because you guys do it each year. You give an allotment for your maintenance department. So what did they use the shoes for? Well, one of the things they use the shoes for is to be coal miners. They need that, and it is required for their jobs. The other is they use it to find ginseng root that grows wild in West Virginia. These shoes help change their lives. You see, drugs have decimated this area for men and women. First, opioids, painkillers came in, then the pharmaceutical companies cut that back. Now heroin has come in and has become the drug of choice. And it's easy and it's cheap. So our church's mission is to go there to help the men and women turn their lives around and to live for Christ before the inevitable overdose happens. I come before you to ask you to allow us together to start a yearly collection using steel-tip shoes for the West Virginia mission trip from your maintenance department employees, and to call in honor of my friend in the past year. He's your past employee, Sharon Shoes for West Virginia collection. So that's one. Two, I got 45 seconds. All right. My wife Charmaine went to school in Chicago, and if you get perfect attendance in Chicago, you actually get 2 tickets to go see the Cubs in the bleacher seats. I brought it up to the Honey Hunters, and they would like to do that, but I'm here to ask you guys, direct me on who in the administration I need to get in contact with so we could set this up, and I hope you'll agree with me that this is a nice incentive for our students. Last but not least, the Honey Hunters have a battle. I want to try to do a battle of the bands. I discussed this a lot with Doc Cherry, okay? A battle of the bands at the ballpark, and I spoke to a gentleman here, and he said, Jim, it's a great idea, but COVID has wreaked havoc on the school bands, and he said, maybe next year. I said, fine. So I've asked him, some time to work out the details between now and then. In the meantime, he invited me to come to the school band competition on the coming Saturday, October 30th at Stuart Kramer, and I can't wait. Honorable school board members and Superintendent Booker, thank you for allowing me to come before you and present some of these items that I hope will benefit to y'all and your students. Thank you, and if you have any questions, call me 704-860-8789, Jim Gallagher. Thank you very much.
And Councilman Gallagher will have someone in the staff reach out to you about that perfect attendance.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
It is an hour. I had one more on my list. I hate to cut it off. And Jordan.
Thank you very much. I come to you as a nurse of the past 24 years and a nurse anesthetist of the past 13. I work at 3 different hospitals and or outpatient clinics in the Charlotte area. And I'm coming here to ask for your support in making masks optional for our children. We have seen a great decrease in the positivity rate and the number of cases over the past month. Every chart that we have looked at is almost like a bell-shaped curve, up and coming down. So back in September, and actually August, when the masks were deemed mandated, trending up. Hospitalizations are down dramatically. Elective cases are being added back in at all hospitals that I work at. In the past 7 days, it's down almost 50%. If this is about hospitalizations, which everybody says it is, make sure that people have the care that they need. If those numbers go down, then why can we not try to remove the masks from the children? There are counties surrounding us that do. There's York in South Carolina, which is one of the hospitals that I work at Piedmont. They have mask optional. There's Lincoln, there's Union. They've all succeeded with the mask being optional. Guess what? The decline is also happening in those counties. All very similar, and same thing with the hospitalization. Take the masks off our children. No child should be forced to participate in gym class running around with a mask on. I know that when I go to codes and I run up a flight of stairs in a mask in the hospital, I can barely breathe. I know that the CO2 actually does rise. I monitor it on a daily basis. You put a mask on a patient with oxygen on, and their CO2 goes from 1 or 2, being, or the end tidal increases dramatically, about 25% with the mask. It's actually a dangerous practice in a patient that is, partially unconscious or anesthetized. Yet we do it to our children. We force them to run around in gym class with the mask on. Get more creative. Why can the teachers not hold gym class outside? Why can you not sit underneath the tree and read a book? Let the children breathe. Try it. What's the worst that can happen? We go back, you can call an emergency meeting in 2 weeks, and my God, reverse the decision. Try it. Give the parents a chance to send some people to school with masks and some people not, but it's a parent's decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, my name, Ann Jordan, and you have my address. Sorry, I forgot the part.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and your continuous concern for Gaston County Schools. Although the board does not typically respond during the period for public comment, we do want to hear from the public, and we direct our staff to work on those issues that need to be addressed. Thank you again for your comments. The next item on the agenda is approval and correction of minutes. This item's on the agenda for action. I need a motion to approve the minutes September the 20th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the minutes.
There's a motion, second by Mr. Hall. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Mr. Collier?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda allows for a report from our superintendent on COVID-19 update. This is an information item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We have done a lot of work since our schools opened related to COVID, and I continue our partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services. And we have with us tonight Steve Eaton. I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Eaton.
Great. Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, members of the school board, and Dr. Booker. Thank you again for having me this evening. What I'd like to do is start off by showing you all, as I've done each month, our COVID key metrics. So when we look at our current key metrics for Gaston County, both for this week and last week, we are trending in the right direction in nearly all areas. This is certainly very encouraging and consistent to what we've seen with the behavior of the Delta variant in other areas of the world. When we look at the daily new cases of COVID, you'll see the continued downward trend in new cases that we've sustained for nearly 4 consecutive weeks. This is certainly very encouraging, as I said, but we still remain very high with nearly 100 cases per day. Our positivity rate for Gaston County has also decreased. The last time we met, it was 17.1%, and as of today, it's 12.6%. Again, this is very encouraging to see community transmission decreasing, but what we've said all along is we'd like to see this around at or below 5%. Currently, where we are now at 12.6% is in the second highest category in North Carolina. Before we go to the next slide, I want to also let you all look at it from another end, which is the rate of transmission. And when we look at the case rate for Gaston County, our case rate is 44 new cases per 100,000. When we compare that to Mecklenburg, they're at 21 cases per 100,000. And for North Carolina, it's 30 cases per 100,000. And for the U.S. daily rate, it's 25 per 100,000. So when put on an even playing field, we're double Mecklenburg. We're 14 cases higher per 100,000 than North Carolina, and close to double the U.S. rate. So again, we do remain high while also seeing this come down. When we look at hospitalizations, again, this is certainly encouraging. Similar to new cases and our positivity rate, we've seen a great decrease in those who have been hospitalized due to COVID. This is certainly important for both mortality and disability, but also to the impact of the healthcare system as a whole here in Gaston County. While this metric is coming down, it is still fairly high at a hospital census of over 80 Gaston County citizens per day. This slide overlays the daily case count, average hospitalizations, and deaths in Gaston County. And you'll see a couple of those weeks where we were well over 30 cases per week, 30 citizens per week passing away due to COVID. As you can see, the daily case count is in green, and as you see the daily case count increase, you'll see the average number of hospitalized in yellow decrease, followed by the numbers of those passing away due to COVID also decreasing. So again, trending in the right direction. So let's look at Gaston County cases and contacts. This data, again, is regarding all school-age children in Gaston County. And it's not just specific to Gaston County Public Schools, but it also includes public, private, and charter. So I always just like to mention that. When we look at the weekly cases for ages 4 to 18, this slide shows you the number of COVID positive Gaston County for that population. As you can see, the number of these new cases in the school-age population is also decreased, but currently remains high at 131 cases this last week. Certainly, we'd like to also see this number continuing to decline as it's trending currently. The red line on this slide shows you the 4 to 18-year-old population as a percent of total cases. The percent of new positives for the 4 to 18-year-old population has remained consistent even through the decrease at nearly 25%. Phrased another way, while the number of daily cases has decreased, the percentage of school-age positives has remained level at 25% as a percent of total cases in Gaston County. This is very encouraging and positive, a very encouraging and positive slide here that I think reflects, I know reflects the great work of the staff, the students, and the leadership of Gaston County Schools. Based on a decline in the daily new cases and the indoor mask mandate that's currently in place, Gaston County Schools has an extremely low number of students needing to quarantine based on exposure. When we compare this to other school districts that did not have a mask mandate, this number quite honestly could be closer to sixfold what you're seeing here. And it's what's been experienced in other school districts that did not have a mask mandate. So while 1,000 sounds high, it could be more like 6,000 without a mask mandate in place for quarantining. Again, this data is for all Gaston County schools, public, private, and charter. On this slide, we have all the staff positives and exposures combined on one slide. In the green, you'll see the positive cases, and in the gray, you'll see those who were exposed and had to quarantine for faculty and staff. Gaston County continues to lag significantly behind the state in the average of vaccination among the 12 to 17-year-old population. In North Carolina, 41% of 12 to 17-year-olds are fully vaccinated compared to 28% in Gaston County. With regards to pediatric hospitalizations, this slide will show you month by month the number of Gaston County children who have needed to be hospitalized due to COVID. September tied our greatest amount for a month at 7, and currently in October we've had 2. Much like I did at our last presentation, I want you all to see a comparison of where we were in October of 2020 to where we are now in October of 2021. Last year we had an average daily new positives of 99 compared to 82 today. On average, last year at this time, we had 7.4 youth ages 4 to 18 testing positive. Today, we're seeing an average of 18.7 testing positive. Our positivity rate last year was 11.9. It's now 12.3. And the average COVID census at the hospital was 65 last year. Now it's 78. So, the last slide is the public health recommendation to you all as a school board for moving forward. My recommendation would be for you all to continue to adhere to the North Carolina Schools Toolkit based on the guidance that was updated on October 5th, 21. The basis for my recommendation is multiply layered. One, beginning with our vaccination rate in Gaston County, which is remains low. We know this is not only just transmitted among children, but then children also transmitted to loved ones at home and caretakers. The other reason is vaccine currently is not available to the 5 to 11-year-old population. So there is a large contingent of students out there that don't even have the option of vaccine at this point. Further, our positivity rate is extremely high at 12.6%. And as I mentioned earlier, 5% or lower would be where we want to be. And also our high number of daily new cases is at 100 currently, and we'd like to see that certainly come down. But I am very encouraged with what we're seeing. Again, much like we've seen in other countries, the rapid decline from the Delta variant is almost accelerates at the same rate as it went up. So I feel confident that we're headed in the right direction, but I feel like based on what we're seeing now, it's a little bit too early to move in a new direction. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Eden. The next item is one that we'll have on the agenda every regular meeting for the duration of a school year. By new North Carolina law, all Board of Education shall vote on the face covering policy every month and either maintain the current policy or amend it. Our current policy is that masks are required in Gaston County Public Schools by all students, staff, and visitors on all campuses. This policy is keeping with the recommendation of the state and local health departments and the Strong School North Carolina Public Health Toolkit. Based on the prior agenda item, COVID-19 update, do I hear a motion for how the board would like to proceed?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we leave our policy the same for the next month until, I hate to say a particular number goes down, but we need to go with what our medical people are telling us and our health directors and our state of North Carolina. So I'll make that motion that we do continue with their mask mandate.
Until
Well, for 1 month, I mean.
Yeah, that's correct.
Or at a time that, it will go down substantially.
So I have a motion on the floor, Mr. Dedman, and a second by Ms. Guthrie. Any discussions? Yes.
I'd like to address our athletics. How do we expect them to perform wrestling with a mask on?
Mr. Hall, we will follow the guidance that we followed last spring from the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. And in wrestling, they allowed them during the actual match to not wear the mask, but the participants who are not on the actual mat but are watching their other teammates, they will be masked while they're not wrestling. Anytime during practice and they're not engaged in the actual man-on-man wrestling, they'll be wearing their mask.
Could that be done in basketball as well?
Basketball, the recommendation was that they do wear them while they're playing.
Okay. Any other questions, discussions, comments?
I don't have a question, but I do have some comments, Mr. Chair.
All right. Ms. Guthrie?
First of all, I want to say to Steve Eaton, and as well as the superintendent, we appreciate what you're doing and how you're doing and keeping us informed. You did have some good news to share this evening, and I like hearing that there's a decline in our COVID rate, and we all know how important it is for our children to have that in-person learning. We know that they need to be there in the schools working with the teachers, perhaps one-on-one or one-to-one, whatever the teachers are able to do now. I applaud the teachers for what you're doing, how you're trying to maintain classroom instruction while trying and doing your best to adhere to COVID rules that are in place. Again, we are all in this together, and we should all celebrate while we know that it's important to maintain what we're doing right now as recommended by the state toolkit. If we continue to do what we're doing and continue to practice patience and continue to do all that we can to keep our children encouraged, we will eventually make that happen where we won't have to wear a mask. For years, I worked in a school, and when we felt that there was an intruder, we had a secret word that we would use, and we would gather the children together, and we would all go to a safe place in the school, and we would remain there until we heard from the principal that all was clear. We're gathering our children right now, and we're doing our best to protect our children because we cannot see what's happening, but we know that it's happening. And if we can continue to wear the mask, to encourage each other, and to keep everything positive, we're going to hear those words, it's safe. And we can return to wonderful in-person learning, and character education will be in place. And our children will be able to tug on the teacher's leg and ask that question that he or she needs an answer to. And our students will be able to dribble the ball down the court, Mr. Hall, and laugh and cheer. We're going to get there. And we hear good news tonight. That's encouraging for me. So we thank you for what you're doing, how you're doing it, and let us continue to do it together and remain positive. Those bus drivers out there, the cafeteria workers, all of our maintenance people, you are doing your best to keep us active. And we appreciate everyone. When teachers call in and the principals can't find a replacement, someone else will need to go to that classroom to make sure that the needs of our children are met. We won't have that worry if we continue to practice good measures. And soon we will hear good news coming from the superintendent and from the health department. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Ms. Guthrie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speak?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Cherry.
I have to punch him to let me speak. To kind of mimic what Ms. Guthrie is saying, that first of all, I know some people don't believe this, but we truly respect everybody that spoke. We don't necessarily, I know some of y'all don't feel like that we align with some of you, but I think I speak for most of the board members, if not all. Again, and I've said this before, we were elected to make sure that we do the best job that we can to get our children educated. And the only way that we can get them educated is to keep them in front of our teachers. And that's what we're trying to do. While Mr. Eaton was talking, I got a text from a couple of friends of mine that teach in Lincoln County. One of them said that half of her class is out already because they were exposed to one kid. If we were optional right now, this would be happening on a consistent basis, whether it be from a teacher or a child. Is this the best case scenario? Absolutely not. Like Ms. Guthrie said, like we want. We want to be back to the most normal situation that we can. But we're not right now. Our kids are in their classrooms. They're in front of their teachers. They're with their friends. And they're learning. And this is what we're all here for. So, again, respectfully, I'm glad that people can come in and say what they feel. But we're here to do a job, and we were elected to make sure that we provide the best learning environment that we can for the children in Gaston County.
Thank you, Ms. Cherry.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Hall.
Dr. Booker, how many do we have in quarantine right now?
Just right at 1,000 the last time I looked at the number.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor and a second, and I'll read the motion again. Masks are required in Gaston County Public School by all students, staff, and visitors of all campus. until our next board meeting. So all in favor? Mr. Collier?
Yes.
Okay. All opposed? It's 6-3. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Gaston County School Testing Center. This is an action item. Dr. Payne will present.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, and Superintendent Booker, and members of the board. Tonight, I would like to share with you the exciting news about our Gaston County Testing Center. The opening was today, and we are so excited about the opportunities that it provides to our district. Our continued focus is to keep students safe, healthy, and at school. Testing, in addition to the other mitigation strategies that we have in place in our schools, reduce the risk of the transmission among our students and employees. At the September board meeting, we shared about information about receiving funds to open a testing center. We have secured CNAs, certified nurses assistants, to run our testing center and to provide tests to our students and employees. It is an optional process that they can participate in. We are excited to announce that today was the first day of our testing center being open at the Records Room on Clay Street. Students and employees who have been determined or identified as a close contact or an exposed student have the opportunity to choose to go and be tested on day 5, 6, or 7 after their exposure, and if they have a negative test and have no symptoms, they will be eligible to return to school on day 8. We have 9 certified nurses assistant working at our center currently, and we tested 12 students today, all of which are going to be eligible to go back to school on day 8. Tonight, we would like to present additional opportunity that has been approved by the Department of Health and Human Services that we have been invited to participate in with ABC Collaborative. Test to Stay is a study that will increase the amount of time that students are able to stay in school. Right now, students and employees who are exposed must quarantine at home for 14 days unless they are vaccinated or if they've had a positive COVID test in the last 90 days. Our students and employees have the opportunity according to the Strong Schools Toolkit, for an abbreviated quarantine if they are tested on day 5, 6, or 7 with no symptoms and they have a negative test, they can return on day 8. If they choose not to test and they have no symptoms, they can, after 10 days of quarantine, they can return on day 11. However, our protocol only allows students to return at the earliest on day 8. So Test to Stay is a voluntary study that provides students and employees the opportunity to choose to participate in so that they can be allowed to remain in school after an exposure or having a close contact with a positive COVID-19 case, provided they have tested for COVID-19 at the pre-specified intervals of day 1, day 3, day 5, day 7. They have no symptoms, they continue proper masking, and they test, the test results remain negative. With Test to Stay, students and employees who choose to participate will be eligible with a negative test to return to instruction only as early as day 1. This will also allow them to remain in school for their instruction as long as they continue to receive that negative test. How does this impact Gaston County schools? Our unvaccinated students and employees who have been exposed would be able to return to school right away if they participate in Test to Stay, and again, it is voluntary, it is a choice they have. If they have no symptoms, if they continue wearing their mask, continue to do that physical distancing of 3 feet, and continue to test negative. To be an eligible participant, you must be an individual who is a student or employee of Gaston County Schools, have no symptoms, and wear your mask appropriately. This program, again, is optional for all students and staff. Those who choose not to participate will just follow the current quarantine guidelines as outlined in the Strong Schools Toolkit. So what would Test to Stay look like if approved in Gaston County Schools? We would have a site in every feeder area, and we would also be able to offer extended testing hours to meet the needs of our families. We would provide that optional testing for our exposed students and employees who do not have symptoms, if they choose to do so. And our parents would get rapid results from a health department approved antigen test, allowing their return to be expedited. So our testing center on West Garrison Boulevard would offer family extended hours, while each feeder area would have one site to increase the availability and accessibility for our families. We would use agency staffing at each of our testing sites, and our students and employees would no longer need to make an appointment since we have more sites available for testing, and there would be no charge for testing. Once a student or employee has been identified through contact tracing as exposed, in Test to Stay, they would have the opportunity to choose to participate in optional testing on day 1, day 3, day 5, day 7. So they would be testing 4 different times in order to remain in school for the instructional day, and they would have to be negative on all 4 of those tests. If the students, again, have no symptoms and test negative, they would be eligible to return or remain at school for work for the instructional day wearing their mask and physical distancing. If they test positive, they would begin isolation or schedule a PCR test with their local provider. So our results and reporting, if we would choose to participate in this study, we would continue the COVID-19 data collection and reporting that we do now through eCater, which is the state database. In addition, we would report our totals to ABC Collaborative, not identifying any student or employee names. So we've heard from many parents, as you have as well, about their frustration, our frustration, about quarantining and the amount of time lost from school. Test to Stay would allow students and employees the opportunity to remain in school for the instructional day, which would minimize disruptions to the school day, instruction, and their home operations due to quarantine. We have created some hypothetical situations or scenarios to let you see how Test to Stay could be applied in different situations. So Molly was having lunch with her class. She was unmasked for more than 15 minutes and was within 6 feet of the student who tested positive. So step 1, contact tracing occurs. This is what's going on every day in our schools. Our school nurses are leading this effort, and they begin to contact trace. They are determining, was Molly masked? Well, we know that Molly was not masked because they were in lunch. Was it within 6 feet? In their contact tracing, they found out it was within 6 feet. And was it for more than 15 minutes? And the answer to that was she was unmasked within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. So she is now identified as an exposure. Step 2, the school nurse will contact the parent or guardian to let them know that their child has been exposed to someone who is positive with COVID-19. The nurse will provide the parent quarantine options. Right now, as we said a little while ago, if they've been vaccinated, they will find that out, because if so, they will be able to return to school. If they've tested positive within the last 90 days, and they have no symptoms, they would be eligible to return to school. Parents could have the option for the 14-day quarantine, which is the generalized quarantine. If a parent opts to test on day 5, 6, or 7, their student, and they have a negative test result and no symptoms, they could return on day 8 with masking and physical distancing for instruction. If they don't test and they have no symptoms on day and they quarantine for 10 days, on day 11 they could return to school for instruction with physical distancing and masking. In Test to Stay, students could return after their first test on day 1, as long as it is negative and they have no symptoms. They would be required to physical distance and wear a mask, but they could be there day 1, day 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through. And they would test through day 7. So they would test on day 1, day 3, day 5, and day 7. Molly's family in this situation chose to participate, so they would go to the testing center or their feeder testing site, at which time they have to sign a consent form. Every person who is tested at a GCS testing site will sign a consent form, whether they're an employee or the parent or guardian of a student. Molly's parents signed permission for her to have testing. So the next part is they have to make sure that they have no symptoms. At the beginning of the year, we sent home a screener magnet that looks just like this that parents can use at home. We will utilize that same screener tool to determine that students do not have symptoms or they're asymptomatic. So the CNA at the testing center would go over that with Molly's family. They would determine that Molly is cleared of symptoms, and when they do that, she would be provided directions about the self-swabbing. They're using a Quidel QuickView antigen test. It requires 10 to 15 minutes to get the result, and it's a very low nasal swab that is not intrusive. It is a swab right on the interior of the nasal passage, no more than the Q-tip, the end of a Q-tip, right at the exterior part of your nasal passage. Once she does that, the test will be processed, which takes 10 to 15 minutes. Then we communicate those results with the school and the parents. Molly, in this scenario, her tests are negative and she has no symptoms, so Molly could return to school wearing a mask and physical distancing on day 1. To be eligible to remain in school, she would have to go and be tested on day 3, day 5, and day 7 to continue that. So to give you a visual of that timeline, it shows you that on day 2, she would remain in school as normal with instructional day only, wearing a mask and physical distancing. Retest on day 3. If negative, she would be able to return to school. Instructional day with physical distancing and a mask. 4, remain in school. Day 5, retest, and if it's negative, she can go back to school. 6, she would in school, and on day 7, she would retest, and if negative, she would return to school for the instructional day only. Beginning day 8, there's no more retest because that aligns her with the normal reduction in quarantine that we are currently following. So then she would return to school for the instructional day only, following our current protocol. Our next scenario, Jordan was unmasked in the locker room for more than 15 minutes and a team member tested positive for COVID. So again, step 1 is always going to be contact tracing. 6 feet, more than 15 minutes, unmasked. They found that yes, Jordan was within 6 feet of the person who tested positive for more than 15 minutes within a 24-hour time period, and she was unmasked. So again, the school nurse will contact the parent and guardian and make sure that they are aware of the exposure. They will provide them the quarantine options. If we choose to go with test to stay, that would be one of the options provided to the family. And then the parent would have a choice about participating in the optional test to stay program. In this scenario, Jordan's parents do not want to participate in the study, and that is okay. So Jordan is now going to follow the normal quarantine guidelines outlined in Strong Schools Toolkit that we are currently following. If they want to, they can test her on day 5, 6, or 7 one time, either 5, 6, or 7, and she can return on day 8. They cannot test, and if she has no symptoms for 10 days of quarantine, she can return on day 11, or she can quarantine for the entire 14 days and return on day 15 with no restrictions. So that gives parents some options. Okay, scenario 3. Carter tested positive for COVID-19. He was around other students at lunch and during mass breaks. Joe, Isaiah, Parker, and Matthew were found to be exposed due to being unmasked for more than 15 cumulative minutes. So again, our nurses are doing contact tracing as first step always. So 15 minutes, yes, he was around more than 15 minutes. They were not masked, and they were within 6 feet, so they are considered to be exposures. So the next step is going to be to call the parent or guardian and let them know of the exposure. Then they're going to provide the quarantine options that are available, including the test to stay. Parents will have the option to participate in Test to Stay. The parent will take them to the testing site to sign the consent. Once they got to the testing site in this scenario, the CNA was doing the symptom screener, and they noticed that Joe had started showing symptoms. So Joe is no longer eligible to do Test to Stay and would begin quarantining at home because he is now symptomatic. However, the other 3 students have been cleared to test. So they do get the directions on how to do the self-swab with the the non-invasive nasal swab, and those results will take 10 to 15 minutes. The results are communicated with the parents. So Joe had symptoms. There were 4 boys. Joe had symptoms. Matthew tested positive. So Matthew now has to isolate or schedule to have a PCR test within 48 hours. However, Isaiah and Parker received negative results. This allows them to return to school for the instructional day only, masked, physical distancing, and retest on days 3, 5, and 7. To summarize, in our hypothetical scenarios that we've had, we had 6 students identified as exposed. And under the current protocol, they would have to quarantine for 14 days unless they have been vaccinated or they had tested positive. We do have the reduction in quarantine in our current protocol, which would mean that 3 of those 6 students would have been eligible to return on day 8. 1 of those students would have been eligible to return on day 11, at a minimum of 7 days of loss of in-person instruction to each one of the 6 students. With Test to Stay in our scenarios, we would have 6 exposed students. Half of them, 3 of them, would be eligible to return to school on day 1. The other 3 that would not would be because 1 was symptomatic, 1 was positive, and 1 chose not to participate. Think about this. If half of our students that are quarantined could stay in class, how powerful would that be? So just to go over the protocols of how the Test to Stay program works one more time, not in a scenario format, we always do our contact tracing to identify our exposed students. The school nurse will call the parent or employee and notify them that they have been exposed and give them the quarantine options. The student or employee will have the opportunity to choose to participate in Test to Stay, or they can quarantine at home. So if they do not participate, they will follow the normal current protocol that we are following, which is outlined in the Strong Schools Toolkit. Everyone participating must sign consent. If they choose not to, again, they will just follow the normal quarantine guidelines that are in the Strong Schools Toolkit. And then our students or employees will go to the testing site, either in their feeder area or at our testing center. We will do the screener using the same information that we sent home at the beginning of the year on our magnet for our home screening. And if there are no symptoms, they will be eligible to test on day 1, day 3, day 5, and again on day 7. If the test is negative and the students are still asymptomatic, they would be eligible to return to school and remain in class. So, let's look at one more chart to show you the difference between what we're doing now and how Test to Stay is laid out. The difference between day 1 and day 2, both of them, you have the notification of exposure, and quarantining begins in both. But in Test to Stay, the student and employee has the option to test and return to school for the instructional school day only. You will notice in day 3 through 7, under our current guidelines, all of our students and employees are at home quarantining. In Test to Stay, as long as students and employees do not show symptoms and they continue to test negative, they will be able to remain in school for the instructional day only. That is where you see the greatest difference. Under the current guidelines, exposed students and employees will be out of school for a minimum of 7 days, and that could be eliminated or reduced if families or employees choose to participate in Test to Stay if they receive negative tests and if they remain asymptomatic, which will minimize the disruption due to quarantine to our school day, our students' instruction, as well as home operations. In day 8 through 10, students who receive a negative test will follow the guidelines for returning to school for the instructional day, including no symptoms, wearing a mask, and physical distancing. You will notice that those students under the current protocol who are not back at school by then, if they are still not symptomatic, on day 11, after 10 days of quarantine, they will be able to return with physical distancing and masking. And then on day 15, students are clear of all restrictions except for wearing a mask, which our students do daily. Thank you for your time tonight. We are asking for your authorization to participate in the Test to Stay study with ABC Collaborative and to expand the voluntary COVID-19 testing centers to include our feeder testing sites for Gaston County Schools, employees, and students.
Okay. Mr. Collier had a question first, and then Ms. Cherry, Ms. Guthrie, Ms. Lovelace. She's going to tell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd just like to say and want to reiterate something Ms. Cherry said earlier is we're trying to make decisions to keep children in school and with in-person instruction, and we're having to follow the rules we're given to play with. This is another incredible tool that's going to help children stay in school if parents choose to use it. I understand it's optional. I really like the name, Test to Stay. But the question I have is, Gaston County Schools would not have this option or these tests if we weren't masking. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Collier, that is correct. This is a program that the ABC Collaborative worked at the state level to get approved, and then the local health department had to concur that we could implement this program. So if we're not doing masking, you cannot participate in the program.
It's just another incredible opportunity to help keep our children in school, which I think this board and every parent out there is in favor for. It's keeping our children in school. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. Ms. Cherry?
So you will send out information where these feeder sites are going to be? Are they going to be within a school? Or I know the one is at the old resource center at York Chester, but this information will be given out.
Ms. Cherry, we will, based on the board's decision tonight, will work with schools to determine a school that's appropriate in each feeder. We have not made that decision at this time.
Okay. Okay.
But there will be one in each feeder, and then again,
let me reiterate, whether it's the testing, the new testing center that we'll vote on, or the other one, it's all optional and free.
That's correct.
To our students and parents, faculty.
Yes,
or
ma'am.
Employees. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Guthrie?
First of all, Dr. Payne, I want to say to you that you did a good job in explaining by providing the scenarios. That was good, and I think what you do when you explain that to parents will help to relieve them so that they will know that there's hope for their children. I passed by the old student record building the other day, and I looked out and I said to myself, hope is there. Our students will be able to, through the program that's going to be implemented there, they'll be able to return to school sooner than later. And that is just a plus. But let me ask you about the transportation. So if Test to Stay and the times that parents will need to have their children tested, or perhaps some young folk could drive there themselves, what type of, parents will have to make provisions for transportation, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. We will set, and that's part of why, once you approve, we will work with the schools to spread out and have more access across the county than the one central spot. But we do, and we will want parents for the consent purpose to be there. And also, if the student were to test positive, then there's someone there to take them home.
I just think it's a great thing. Thank you so much. Excellent.
Thank you, Ms. Guthrie. Ms. Lovelace?
Several times in your scenarios, you referred to the student or the being able to come back for the instructional day only. Does this mean that they are excluded from extracurricular activities like sports?
Yes, Ms. Lovelace, that is, as part of the study, it has to be in the environment where you are controlled, and when you're in athletics, you're outside of that.
Okay.
And so it does not allow a student athlete to participate, but they
Okay.
can come to school and get their daily curriculum.
Okay, and one more question. Do the employees who are in quarantine, do they have to use sick days?
The program that the federal government had in place has expired, and so now they are having to utilize their own time off. We've tried to work as best we can to keep everybody in pay status, so this gives us another opportunity for those employees to not be excluded.
Mr. Dedman?
Dr. Payne, does that include parents also? If, like, I have to take my son, and do those parents, I thought I heard you say they could also be tested?
No, sir.
They cannot,
No.
just the students.
Yeah, Mr. Dedman, the way this program is set, it's for the school-based folks.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? This is an action item.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the, to do the school testing center.
Okay.
Can we make that say test to stay?
Test to stay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Make a motion, second by Ms. Guthrie. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Mr. Collier?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Dr. Payne, Dr. Bucknight. Next on the agenda is a report from our Curriculum and Instruction Committee. Ms. Dot Guthrie is chair of that committee, and the other members of that committee are Justin Davis, Steve Hall, and Robbie Lovelace. Ms. Guthrie?
Mr. Chair, Mrs. Lovelace will be presented.
All right, thank you.
Okay, this is a report for the regular meeting Curriculum and Instruction Committee. It was held on October 4th, 2021. Members present were Dot Guthrie, Robbie Lovelace, Justin Davis, Dot Cherry, and Jeff Ramsey. The meeting was called to order at 12:03 p.m. Staff provided updates on the district's online enrollment platform and digital records. Scribbles is the online platform implemented by the Office of Student Assignment to assist families in several areas, including online enrollment and student transfer request. Online enrollment with the Scribbles platform expedites time, provides ongoing communication between the Office of Student Assignment and families, and the online application is available in multiple languages. Digital transcripts and records are generated securely from online requests. An order number is provided with each request to track the request as needed. Digitizing records provides additional security of student information to prevent loss and damage. The meeting adjourned at 1:13 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Lovelace. Next report is the Operation Committee Report Information, and our chair is Mr. Dedman.
And Mr. Chair, will be giving our report.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the Operations Committee met on Monday, October the 4th at 4 p.m. here in the boardroom. Committee members in attendance were Lee Dedman, Kevin Collier, myself, and Brent Moore. Associate Superintendent and Chief Financial Officer Gary Hoskins informed us that there has been no formal offer made by the Gaston Aquatic Center to purchase land near Stuart Cramer High School. If the Aquatic Center does make an offer, it will be reviewed and evaluated by the committee. Joey Clinton, our HR Director, reported that open enrollment period for the state health plan runs from October the 11th through the 29th. There are no increases in premiums this year, so we're happy about that. Mr. Clinton gave details on the beginning teacher support plan, which will be reviewed during the board meeting tonight. And Mr. Clinton also announced that Sydney Hillman, a fourth grade teacher at Lowell Elementary, is our NCCAT New Teacher of the Year. So congratulations, Sydney. Very happy and proud of you. Dr. Morgan Huchard, Director of Student Auxiliary Services, informed us that we'll continue to work to fill employee vacancies located throughout our auxiliary services. School safety audits are being conducted by our Safety and Security Department. Also, work orders are continued to be completed by facilities and school nutrition, and we continue to prepare meals even though there are still shortages, delays, price increases on meats, canned foods, paper products, and I think some people have noticed that we're having to really be creative about trays right now. So I know that I've had a few questions, sidebar here, but if people will keep in mind the problems that they're having when they're shopping, it's the same with school nutrition, just on a much bigger scale. So I hope all of our parents will indulge school nutrition. I had seen Angela a couple of days ago, and she indicated that when she orders something, it doesn't show up on the truck, kind of like when we go to Sam's and there's no toilet paper. So we all need to keep that in mind, that supply chain problem is happening to everybody, big and small. Didn't mean to go on that sidebar, but excuse me. Dr. Huchard also updated us on the Dallas residence that the school system owns. The property has been declared surplus by the board, and the staff is working on disposing the property as soon as possible. He also informed us that the Greer Architectural Selection Committee met to review the firms that made it through the pre-qualification process. The selection committee plans to interview 5 firms on October 27th. The intent is to recommend an architectural firm for the Greer Replacement School to the board at our November 15th meeting. Mr. Hoskins reviewed the 2020 compliance report that stated that we are in compliance for the major federal programs and the major state programs. This report will be also presented tonight at the board meeting. The committee reviewed and recommended approval of the following contracts: the high school stadium network connectivity installation, the Cisco Smart Net renewal, and various lawn care and landscape contracts. That is a district-wide initiative for the schools. These contracts will appear on the consent agenda. And our next meeting is scheduled for November 1st at 4 p.m. And that's the report.
Thank you for both committees for working hard on both our students, staff, and parents. We're going to take a quick 5-minute recess.
We need it.
Okay.
Before we recess, may I say one word?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, more than one. Dr. Huchard, I want to say to you, it was last year that I asked you a series of questions about the safety and how students would be transported to school. You have accepted a major challenge. You've done it well, and you continue to do it well. And I want to thank you for accepting that challenge, not just for transportation, but for food services and other things that we so desperately need. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Guthrie. And we'll have a 5 minutes recess. Thank you. Next on the agenda is our National Principals Month proclamation. This is an action item, and Todd Hagan will present.
Members of the board and Superintendent Booker. October is National Principals Month. Again, this year we have a proclamation to present to you for consideration and approval. At this time, I would like to read the proclamation. Whereas October is designated National Principals Month in recognition of principals, assistant principals, and all school administrators for their outstanding leadership and significant influence on the success of every student. And whereas in addition to establishing high academic expectations and managing day-to-day operations, school administrators are responsible for collaborating with students, teachers, parents, and community leaders to provide a safe, inclusive, and caring school environment where the shared belief that public education is the cornerstone of our democracy is paramount. And whereas while faced with unprecedented challenges as a result of COVID-19, school administrators have shown great tenacity and resilience to support teachers, students, parents, and others while ensuring that quality teaching and learning continues even during an ongoing pandemic. And whereas we are proud of our administrators in Gaston County Schools, and we appreciate their dedication and willingness to inspire success and a lifetime of learning every day. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Gaston County Board of Education is pleased to join other boards of education across the United States in proclaiming October 2021 as National Principals Month and encourages the citizens of Gaston County to recognize and thank all school administrators for their many efforts to guarantee excellence in education in our community. Be it further resolved that this proclamation be made a part of the minutes of the Board of Education adopted this, the 18th day of October 2021. And Mr. Chairman, the proclamation is before you for approval.
All right, Mr. Davis?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the proclamation as an expression of recognition and appreciation for our principals, assistant principals, and other school administrators.
Second.
I know
sorry.
Miss Guthrie
Sorry.
actually raised her hand. We'll take the other now.
And
Any comments? All in favor?
If I could just make a quick comment, our principals have worked extraordinarily hard, and I think this year this is a very fitting proclamation because we do really appreciate everything that our administrators are doing for us.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this may seem childish, but I'm going to do it in respect of the
Do it. Take it down, please. That was a nice gesture, Miss Guthrie. All right, all in favor? Mr. Collier?
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Next on the item is on the agenda, beginning teacher support program plan, and this is an action item. Joey Clinton.
Good evening, Board Chair Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, Superintendent Booker, and board members. This evening, Caroline Black, who works in Human Resources as our beginning teacher support coordinator, is going to give a presentation outlining our Gaston County's beginning teacher support plan. Please keep in mind this is an action item. Ms. Black?
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chairman Cherry, members of the board, and Superintendent Booker. It's my pleasure to share information about the Beginning Teacher Support Program. The Beginning Teacher Support Program is a state-required 3-year induction program for teachers within their first 3 years of teaching. It is designed to help our new teachers become successful educators, meet professional teaching standards, impact student learning, and help our beginning teachers remain in the profession. At this time, we have 191 beginning teachers who are in their first year of teaching and who are supported through our TIPS 1 program. This begins with support from our Human Resources Department as new hires and includes ongoing curriculum and classroom support from our amazing academic and curriculum facilitators from the Academic Services Department. We also have 98 BT2s and 116 BT3s. Our BT2s and 3s receive support through TIPS 2 and 3 support sessions with me, as well as support from our Academic Services Department and other support staff within the district. The Beginning Teacher Program is part of the required Beginning Teacher Plan that is based on our State Board Policy TCED 016. In our district, we meet these state policy requirements through our HR support and through our TIPS, which is our Teacher Induction Program for Success. Our plan is updated when needed and brought to our board each year for approval before being submitted to the state. Last year, there was one required change from the state. This change noted that beginning teachers and principals must complete a survey at the end of the BT's first year. These surveys assist in measuring the educator prep program's performances. There were also some minor terminology changes that were made to our plan in 2021. This year, there are no changes that need to be made to our Beginning Teacher Support Program plan. Our plan contains several required components, including a documented process for identifying our beginning teachers, implementation of a sound induction process, or TIPS program, a formal process for conducting observations and evaluations through NESIS, a plan for participating in the monitoring and peer review program, and a plan for storing and transferring files to other LEAs as needed. After initial review by our regional educational facilitator, this plan that I have reviewed does meet all the state requirements. At this time, we are seeking approval for a 2021-2022 Beginning Teacher Support Program plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? This is an action item. Any comments? Yes, Ms. Guthrie.
I know you want to get home and watch the football game, but I want to say this, 191.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
What a challenging year for our beginning teachers. We applaud them. We applaud you for looking for ways to support their challenging time in a classroom, because we know that it is difficult already, but to have new teachers come in, and perhaps some from other countries.
Yes, ma'am.
What a challenge it must be. So we applaud you, and I heard you say that you modified something last year at 2020. I would imagine that that was to make sure that the needs were met so that they would be in compliance to what was needed. So thank you very much for what you have done and the ways that you are trying to move forward in order to support those teachers so that the love of teaching will remain and not deter them from wanting to remain in the classroom.
But I have to say how exciting too.
Yes.
That we have that many new teachers coming into our system. So challenging and exciting.
Well, this is an action item.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the Beginning Teacher Support Program.
All right, Ms. Cherry, second. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank y'all for your hard work in HR.
Yeah.
Your leadership. Oh, and Mr. Carey said yes 2 times. Sorry about that, Kevin. Yes, next on the agenda is School Improvement Plan for Lower Performance School Information Item, Michael Faust.
All right, good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, members of the board, Superintendent Booker. Tonight, I'm sharing with you information about the low-performing school improvement plan process for the 2021-2022 school year. It is a requirement of the state of North Carolina that all schools create a school improvement plan and use this plan as a tool to drive school improvement over the course of a 2-year time period. The law specifies that each school shall develop a school improvement plan that considers the goals set out in the mission statement for the public schools adopted by the State Board of Education and the annual performance goals for that school as established by the State Board of Education. Annual performance goals must focus on student performance in reading, math, and communication skills in elementary and middle schools. Student performance in courses required for graduation and on other measures in high schools, and hold schools accountable for the educational growth of their students. School improvement plans for non-low performing schools are on a 2-year cycle, with the new cycle beginning in 2020-2021 and continuing through this school year. Low performing school improvement plans are on a yearly cycle and must be presented to the board for review. Usually in September of each year, the State Board of Education will release the low-performing schools for the previous school year. Low-performing schools are identified as schools that receive a performance grade of D or F and have a school growth score of met or not met expected growth. However, due to accountability model waivers at both the state and federal levels in response to the pandemic, Gaston County Schools' low-performing schools designations made during the 2018-2019 school year will continue to remain the same for the 2021-2022 school year. As a low-performing school, schools are required to submit a school improvement plan using the NC STAR platform. Out of the 125 indicators in the system, these schools are required to focus on 12 key indicators. The executive directors and the accountability department have worked with all low-performing schools on writing their plans and getting them ready for you to review. In 2014-2015, the state of North Carolina began identifying low-performing schools. In the first year of identification, Gaston County Schools had 13 schools identified as low-performing. For the 2021-2022 school year, we have continued to identify our 11 low-performing schools. Our low-performing schools are listed here. Although designations remain the same for this year, we continue to follow the timeline the state of North Carolina has provided to us for each step of the low-performing school improvement plan process. On September 3rd, we met with the principals of the identified schools. Principals have continued to work on their school improvement plans and updating their goals and action steps. Now that the plans have been created, the local Board of Education is given time to review the plans and provide any feedback. 30 days after the plans are reviewed, the local board will vote on the approval of the plans. This vote will occur at our November 15th meeting. After the plans are approved by the local Board of Education, the district has 5 days to submit the plans to the state through the NC STAR platform. Tonight, we have provided these plans for your review using the guest logins that have been provided in your folders. And that is all I have to present.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? This is just the information item at this time. And we would like to welcome you as a new member of our team, Mr. Powell.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is high school exam schedule, fall of 2021 and 2022, traditional high schools, Gaston Early College, Dr. Bostic. And this is an action item.
Yes. Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chairman Cherry, members of the board, Superintendent Booker. Believe it or not, it is time once again to talk about high school final exams. High schools are required by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction to give a final exam in all courses that we offer in high school. And the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction Accountability Department requires that those exams be taken in the last 5 days of the semester. And so I do bring you 2 exam schedules this evening because, as you know, our 12 high schools are on 2 different schedules, with our 10 traditional schools being on one schedule. And that would look like the last 5 days of the semester would begin on December 15th, since on that calendar the semester ends on December the 21st. And so we are proposing pretty much a traditional schedule where we do each period of exam, the first 4 of those 5 days, the 5th day being a makeup day. And of course, we would give end of course exams, career and technical education exams, as well as teacher-made exams during that time. The second schedule is for our early college high schools, of which we have 2 this year. And they have requested, because they have a smaller number of students and because they don't tend to have students that miss their exams, they have requested to have 1 additional instructional day on Monday and actually only use the last 4 days of the semester for their exams. They still do have makeup opportunities in the afternoon if a student should miss or be sick, but they have requested to just do the 4 days, and we feel that that is a reasonable request given the number of students they have at those 2 schools. And so this is the early college schedule. And again, this is an action item for you all to approve these schedules this evening.
And in summary, Dr. Bostic, this is consistent with the general statute requirement.
That is
would be
correct.
the last week, and it is consistent with the schedule we have been using since it was required, but we do it the last.
Yes, correct.
Mr. Davis?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept the exam schedule as presented.
Ms. Cherry?
Can we do them both together?
Yeah, I think we can.
Second.
Yeah. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Mr. Collier?
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, Dr. Bostic. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is Gaston County Schools Business Advisory Council update, and this is the information item. Brent Buchanan.
Good afternoon, members of the Gaston County Board of Education, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, Dr. Booker. My pleasure to be here this evening. Another general statute requirement is 2 business advisory councils per LEA regarding CTE funding. On September the 22nd, we had our first of 2 this year, and that was a hybrid meeting, meaning just like our board meeting tonight, we had attendees in our boardroom and via Zoom live. Overall, that created 23 total attendees, which is our largest turnout of any of our business advisory council meetings. This is the agenda as presented. One of the things we did showcase that has been highlighted here in a board meeting and the Gaston Gazette is our EMT students at Cherryville that went through the program of CTE EMT at Cherryville, progressed to Gaston College Apprenticeship 321, and then were eventually hired by GEMS in their EMT program. GEMS was in person at that meeting. Deputy Chief McConnell was present representing GEMS. This is information you have seen before in a previous LAS spring presentation I gave, but our businesses have not seen this yet. So that's one of the things they were very interested in. Overall, there was higher attendance than an in-person opportunity the year before. We also were able to survey our students, which was invaluable data that our businesses have never seen before. And then money that our businesses donated was in turn turned into 10 Gaston College scholarships awarded to 1 student from each of our high schools. And this is the data they enjoyed the most, something that we have never been able to get from our students in an in-person opportunity. And they've always kind of wondered, are they enjoying the content presented? And as you can see, over 80% responded yes from over 700 surveyed students. And did they understand the information presented? And that's one of those things that may seem trivial, but when you're talking about businesses communicating with grades 6 through 12, it's good to know that they are communicating and understanding each other. Moving on to our pictures of our recipient winners. If you're counting, someone like me, you'll notice we were only able to get 9 pictures, but we did give away the 10 scholarships. And they specifically went to students that were going to Gaston College that did participate in the Manufacturing Expo, and they completed the survey. So 10 scholarships were awarded, and all of the funds generated from the donations from our business participants were directly correlated over to those scholarships. Students at Work, something else you have heard about, but again, our businesses participating some of them had not heard about that. So 19 businesses participated. We cut that into 23 different videos. Our municipalities were cut into separate videos to separate those out for our students. 5,000 total student views, and we're still using that content this semester. And then overall, we introduced 18 seniors to businesses, and I do know 2 of those got hired via using those videos the last 3 weeks of school last spring. Some of the comments, or excuse me, the way this was presented. So if you go to our Gaston County Schools CTE district webpage, look to the left, you'll see Students at Work. That's a blue hyperlink. If you click on that, what you see is on the left side of the page here. The only difference is there would be 23 numbers. You'll look to the right and see that business's name, the amount of video footage and time, and then the blue hyperlink. So for example, on the right side of the page, if you would click on the gyms video, the overall total content will be cut into different manageable chunks by our students. They'll watch a small portion, answer questions, and then complete the survey. So again, we're able to pull data from what our students are learning from these individual videos. And the most powerful part for our businesses is, what did the students think about what they learned about the business, or what did they learn about them? You have seen these comments. We also presented plaques at the Gaston Business Association meeting that had these comments around each one of the plaques that we gave to our participating businesses. But great information for them. They've always kind of wondered, what did our students learn? What did they think about the opportunity we provided them? Moving on to something that is new to you and you have not heard yet is educators in the workplace. So for the past 6 years, we've offered educators in the workplace, and it's always been an in-person opportunity where we'll have 20 to 30 educators. They'll go around for a week visiting local businesses. Again, that couldn't be offered due to COVID, so we took our digital content from Students at Work, changed the title, changed a few questions, and then incorporated that into the Teaching and Learning Conference. So now it is offered to all educators grades K through 12, and they were able to experience what others had in the past in a small group. The good thing about that, they could also use that for continuing education units or CEUs. So if they watched an hour's worth of business video content, that would give them 0.1 CEU. So not only are they learning about the community, take relevant information back to their students, it is helping them with their licensure. Some other valuable information. This is what our educators learned about our participating businesses. One of the things I want to mention is the last 4 businesses, Caramont, Dominion, Gaston College, and Gastonia Plumbing and Heating, were all in attendance on September the 22nd. So they get to read not only comments from the students, but also from our educators. And as you can see, our educators did learn quite a bit, and some of the things you may have thought they already knew, but they didn't. So it's good to know that they are processing all the opportunities. And like the one says from Gaston College, one of our educators didn't know about the Apprenticeship 321 program, but they do know about it now, and they could communicate that to our students. The action item for the meeting, or what we had asked our businesses to bring to the table as homework for them, was we are looking to expand some 5th grade career awareness opportunities. I spoke to the instructional board committee meeting a few months ago, highlighting this will be our move for this year with our career development coordinators. So we asked our businesses to come to the table on this September the 22nd meeting to give suggestions on what are some fun activities our 5th graders could do that may highlight a task you would do in your career that they would see as something not only fun, but they would learn from that. An example is just this clip right here. Beside the red first, you'll see a picture of a fire truck and a fireman out there. What we would do is make a pre-recorded video. It could be from a business rep or a teacher. They would be introducing themselves, talking about careers in general, and then talking specifically about a career they went through in their life journey. And then they would show them some of the tasks they were going to do in person with the career development coordinators in their room. Once the video portion was over, the career development coordinators would, like in this example, they would help the students, might have a practice mannequin to pull someone, like in a fire scenario, put on the air packs, and or show them how to properly roll up the fire hose to put in a fire truck. So that was an example given to our businesses. And then we asked them the one simple question: record at least one task or activity as a suggestion for us to move forward in our 5th grade classrooms. So we had our virtual attendees, they would put their suggestions in the chat box, and then our in-person attendees would just wrote it down on a piece of paper for us. Lots of participation. This is one of those, sometimes you wonder, is it going to be a hit or is it going to hit like a brick? Fortunately, everyone participated. We got some really good suggestions, and I'm going to give you just a few of those from our businesses. So the top, some of our manufacturing businesses suggested a factory simulation using Legos. They actually did this in their businesses with their employees. So Legos should be an easy implementation to 5th grade. One of our healthcare providers review a simple case study and then make a diagnosis and treatment suggestion. Next one from one of our local plumbing industries. The students could glue some small diameter pipes together, and then they could study how that could give them some ideas about piping and flow. There was also a suggestion on how to properly put on PPE or personal protection equipment. An EMS provider, the students could practice on a mannequin. They could do patient moving with a stretcher or a stair chair, stop the bleed techniques, and advanced life support skills. And then finally, from one of our local energy providers, and this was a neat one, they had already had this content on YouTube. So they had pre-made digital content that matched exactly to the concept we had suggested on talking to the students about energy careers, and then we show them the fun activity of harnessing the sun's radiant energy. They used a pizza box lined with tinfoil, and they made s'mores, took them outside, and the sun's energy melted the s'mores. Obviously, anytime you have treats, that should be an easy hit with 5th grade students. So ultimately, that was the recap of our meeting. Started at 12 o'clock, got done 5 minutes early. Everybody participated, our largest turnout ever, so it was definitely a productive meeting, and looking forward to our February meeting. That is all I have to present on our advisory council meeting.
Well, thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Buchanan. Right, next item on the agenda is the budget update 2021. This is an information item. Gary Hoskins.
Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, members of the board, and Superintendent Booker. I'm here to provide an update on the 2021-2022 state budget. My update's going to sound very familiar to what I brought up last month. We currently have no comprehensive state budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year yet. The state continues to operate under the recurring budget from 2018, 2019, plus a series of mini budgets that were taken or approved over the last several years. Gaston County Schools operates under the interim budget that this board approved back in July, which is 80% of our 2020-2021 budget. While we still don't have a comprehensive budget, there continues to be some positive signs that there will have one this year. House Speaker Moore announced on October 6th that all unresolved items between the House and the Senate had been worked out, and that they were taking that budget to the governor in private, so we're not doing this over through the news media. The primary disagreements between the General Assembly and the governor seem to be Medicaid expansion, which has been a thorn in their side over the last couple of years, as well as tax cuts and funding to comply with the Leandro case. And if you recall, Leandro case is a 27-year-old case that stated that the North Carolina Constitution guaranteed children access to a sound public education. So the latest price tag for this is about $5.6 billion over 8 years. The governor's budget that he came out with earlier this year includes about $1.6 billion for Leandro, and that's a 2-year budget. The Senate has $405 million in their two-year budget, and the House has $752 million in their 2-year budget. Now, how those two, the state or the House and the Senate, reconciled, I don't know, because that wasn't public. So we're at least, 50% difference between the General Assembly and the governor. So the good news is that we do have a state budget surplus of about $6.5 billion, so at least they have some flexibility. So we will plan to present this board with any relevant items related to the budget as soon as one is passed. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At each of your seats, I have presented to you a copy of the compliance report for the year ended June 30th, 2020. Generally, I will present this to you earlier in the year. However, with the pandemic and the computer conversion, it was an oversight, so I apologize for that. The purpose of this report is for the internal auditors to evaluate our major federal and state programs, our compliance with those programs, and our internal control of those programs. So I'll direct your attention to page 3. This is the report on compliance with each major federal program and internal control over that program. Their review of this resulted in their opinion on the following page. And in their opinion, Gaston County Board of Education complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above. So that is the audit opinion that you would want when the auditors review your program. Same thing with state programs on page 6. They reviewed our state programs, the compliance with the state programs, the internal control of the state programs. And on the following page, page 7, they gave us a opinion that we complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements of these programs. The only finding or question cost that they had is on page 12. And this is an item that we have every year. And this item states that the school system cannot exceed the number of positions or months of employment allotted by DPI. So if you'll notice on here that out of 11,929 allotted months for teachers, we exceeded that by 3.05 months. Our goal is to try to get as close to zero as we can without going negative. Out of 773 months for school administration, we exceeded it by 2.14 months. And out of 1,209 months for instructional support, we exceeded it by 2.47 months. So as a result, we had to pay back the state $42,451, which we did in November 2020. The previous year it was $103,000. So we try to get that number as low as we can, and that's about as low as we can. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we will ask that you accept this report for the board.
Mr. Hall?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Second by Mr. Davis. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Collier?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. There are several items that are consent agenda tonight. Please take a look at those items. Do I hear a motion and approval? Mr. Dedman? All right, you have a second. Mr. Moore? Any discussions? All in favor? Mr. Collier?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is hear from our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We were fortunate to have State Superintendent Catherine Truitt visit along with Freebird McKinney and Julie Pittman, who both work for her in the state DPI last week. They were out doing visits in various districts and wanted to stop in and learn more about our career and technical education program, some of the changes that they had heard about in our English as a second language program. They really wanted to explore the work of Dr. Balknick's team with summer enrichment and the various offerings that exceeded the state's requirements. As part of their visit, they wanted to see the choice programs at Pleasant Ridge Elementary and the feeding to Cramerton Middle. And they visited that, spent about 3 hours in our district. I would like to thank Chairman Ramsey and Vice Chair Cherry for attending on short notice their visit because their schedule was very fluid. But it was a good visit and a good opportunity for our schools to exhibit to the state the hard work that is going on. Very excited to tell you that the Duke Energy Foundation will be awarding $20,000 to our school system in support of our STEAM education efforts. We'll be working with the Duke Energy representatives to coordinate this, and the formal recognition for that will be November 11th at Gaston College, when other grant recipients in our region are recognized. Our calendar committee has begun to meet, because you all know with the COVID and the different things of legislation, we have not adopted a calendar for next year, the 22-23 calendar year. And so the committee is working to get drafts so they can share it out in the public for input, hopefully to get it to you all for review and consideration in January. Just recognize that by general statute, Monday, August 29th is the first day that you can start school, which makes it a very difficult for us to use our current calendar where we've been able to complete first semester before our winter break. But remembering that the statute says you must start on the Monday closest to August 26th, which in next year's calendar is August 29th. So the committee will be working very hard to do that, but you all were very aggressive this year in the calendar that we proposed, and the number of days in each semester. It will be extremely difficult to meet that without some form of legislative change. I want to remind our parents that at the end of the month, October 28th, we will be distributing report cards, and we encourage our parents to review their child's report card and reach out to the school and the school administration if there are any questions about the student's progress. And I will also note that November 11th, when we'll be receiving the Duke Energy grant, is also Veterans Day. And I know that Mr. Hall served our country, and it's a great day to recognize, and that is the one holiday that our state requires that we will always have on our calendar, so it will be a closed day. So we want to recognize and thank our veterans for their service. Mr. Chair, that's my comments, but I do need a closed session for a number of items, sir.
Okay, well, thank for all your time and attention. We have work to do, what's best for our teachers, students, and community. We look forward to our next scheduled meeting, currently scheduled for November the 15th, 2021. I need a motion to go into closed session.
Mr.
Ms.
Chair,
Cherry?
I'd like to make a motion that we go in the closed session for the above items. North Carolina General Statute 143-318 personnel, North Carolina General Statute 143-318 consultation with attorney in order to consult with the board's attorney and protect attorney-client privileges, and to receive advice in respect to the lawsuit captioned McKinney versus Goins and the Gaston County Board of Education, Gaston County Board of Education versus Selco, and Scott versus Gaston County Board of Education, and all other legal matters.
Mr. Davis? Second. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Collier?
Yes.
We're in closed session. We're back in open session. Oh, I forgot about Kevin. You still there? All right, Dr. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I would like to recommend a 2-year assistant principal contract for Julie Sparrow.
Mr. Devon? All right, thank you, Mr. Devon. Have a second, Mr. Moore. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
No, it's 8-1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Guthrie, I didn't see it. It's 8-1. Well, Mr. Devon?
I'm going to refer tonight to defer to Mr. Davis.
Okay, good.
Mr. Davis,
I make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
All in favor? Kevin, you want to stay where you're at?
Yes. No.
We're adjourned. Thank y'all. Have a good evening.